Well, Christchurch Mayor Lianne Dalziel has decided to stand down at next year's local body elections, and the Mayor joins me. Good morning to you.
Good morning, Chris.
Nice to speak with you. Was there a defining moment where you thought to yourself, this is it, I've had enough, it's time to stand down?
Well, I've been going through all of the pros and cons over the last wee while. I really wanted to get the long-term plan out of the way first, and with that now put to bed, it was time to make a decision, and really it just comes down to not really being able to run a campaign on my own. I can't do it without Rob, so that's it.
Let's talk about Rob, because he was your rock. You've described him as your rock and your biggest supporter.
Yeah. I think that it's kind of that unconditional support. No matter how stupid or idiotic I was, he was always there to support me. It can be a pretty rough environment out there. People say the awfulest of things, especially when they aren't talking to your face. It's just it does grind you down. And so, it was just great having somebody who didn't give a flying toss about what anyone thought and would often articulate this in ways that perhaps weren't appropriate for the role.
Well, now you've said that, you better give me an example, Lianne. You can't leave me hanging.
No. If anyone wants to see an example, they can sort of reflect on some of the earlier things. Look, Rob had a way of expressing his contempt for those that weren't willing to stand up and be counted. So, I loved that about him because he was my rock. He just absolutely supported me come hell or high water.
You have been the mayor for 3 terms. When you look back at your tenure, what are you most proud of?
Oh gosh, there are a lot of things that I'm really proud of. I'm really proud of the mayoral task force into flooding, having just gone through the extreme weather event that we did recently, and seeing the Flockton Basin no longer acting as a basin, looking at the residential properties along the Heathcote River. We could just see that such a substantial difference has been made by the investment that came off the back of that. I really still think that going down the track of setting up the Otatahi Community Housing Trust to provide community housing just is a different way of doing things than having the council run it. But I just think it's got so much more to build on. The Christchurch Foundation I'm very proud of as well. I'm really proud of the time and the effort that I invested into building relationships with Mana Whenua, with the region, with our Greater Christchurch Partnership, which is Selwyn and Waimakariri, and the other mayors and councils, and the regional councils. So some of those relationships weren't so well developed when I became the mayor, and I've really invested in those, and they're going to pay off big time, especially when we take on these big challenges, the big reform programs that the government's got going, and 3 Waters and the future for local government, various other things.
Well, that's an interesting point you make, because after reading the government's report, it seems, how would I describe this, wish-washy, and almost as if they're taking, once again, power away from local authorities. And many mayors, including Canterbury mayors, seem a little bit confused as to what is the point. Is that your gut feeling on this?
My gut feeling is that there is a desire to centralise when there is a fear of the extent of underinvestment in infrastructure. And I understand why the government's taken that position, but that's not my function as the mayor of the city. When I sit around the council table, that my function is to look at what is the best interest of the city, and we're looking to central government to provide that compelling case, and that's what I'm saying. They haven't yet provided with the dashboards they put out this week.
Lianne, in your statement, you took a bit of a swipe at the previous administration for its lack of financial literacy, I suppose you could say.
No. It wasn't. It wasn't at financial literacy. The $400 million hole in the budget was a very deliberate mechanism for a sort of a line in the sand by the previous chief executive, actually, who felt that the government would be putting a lot more into the infrastructure repairs than they actually agreed to do in the end. So it was simply a holding mechanism. It was recorded in the budget as savings to be found. So it's not financial illiteracy. It was just a hidden sum, but it was a big hole. And unfortunately for us, the government wasn't prepared to pile an extra $400 million into our infrastructure. And as a result, we had some significant readjustments to do, and that led to the capital drawdown from CCHL.
Lianne, now that you've made it public that you don't intend to stand again at next year's elections, do you feel like there's a bit of a weight off your shoulders? Do you feel like there's more clarity for what you can do now as a person, as opposed to being involved with having to look after other people and represent them? Is a bit of a weight gone now?
Yes, there is. But in saying that weight has been lifted, I just want to also re-emphasise that it has been an extraordinary privilege to represent the city. So I'll never regret making the decision, even though the decision wasn't one that I actively sought myself back in 2013 when I was still a Member of Parliament. I'll never regret taking up this role. It is a role that people don't understand very well, and you probably know that better than most, having had regular interviews with me right throughout my mayoralty. So I just think that having been entrusted with this role, I will always be grateful to the city for that. But yes, it is a relief to be able to think to a new future. And I don't know what that future holds. But
well, that was my next question. What is the future after life, after politics?
Who knows? I don't know what that future holds. So I've always got my legal background to fall back on if I needed to. So options will be there, I'm sure.
Christchurch Mayor Lianne Dalziel, thank you very much for your time this morning.
Thank you, Chris.